Donald Trump's own former White House communications director made an argument against supporting Trump in the upcoming election that's so powerful and compelling, MAGA cultists have absolutely no answer for it, and we have to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, so we're going to play this clip here from Anthony Scaramucci, who used to be not only a Donald Trump supporter, but actively served Trump in his White House. He was the White House communications director, and he has since become an outspoken critic of Donald Trump, his former boss, and he makes this argument that, again, is so powerful and so compelling that there is no rational answer for it from the MAGA camp. We're going to play the clip and unpack it together.
So I think they have to recognize that there's 40 of us, including the former vice president that was on the ballot with Donald Trump, that have explained to the American people the systemic danger that he represents not only to America, but the world. And I would ask these people to think about it. Let's say the 40 of us work for a pharmaceutical company and we told you that the drug was going to kill you, or we work for an automotive company and we say that car is going to crash and kill your family. You've got 40 people that work directly and in touch with Mr. Trump. You can't say that they're never Trumpers and all that other stuff, because we were once Trumpers, but we've seen what he is like, the full criminality of him. We've seen what he's like in terms of his destructive capabilities. And when I say he's un-American, he says he's un-American. He disavows the Constitution. He wants to go after you, Jake Tapper, and CNN. He wants to take your FCC license away. He has told his lawyers, his defense counsel lawyers, many of which that have dropped him, that he'd like to use the FBI as the Gestapo. You know, and the only good thing about that is he doesn't understand history, so he doesn't even know what the word Gestapo means. But this is a very dangerous guy. He shouldn't be anywhere near that White House again. And whatever shortcomings that President Biden may or may not have, I'll be supporting him. So I think.
So, folks, this is an argument that, again, we talked about on this channel because I think, if nothing else, there's so many good arguments. There's so many valid arguments against supporting Donald Trump in the upcoming election and the MAGA movement in general. But this is the one, I think, for which there is truly no good faith counter, okay? Regardless of where you are on Trump, if you are a diehard Trump supporter or if you are merely Trump curious, the fact of the matter is, as Anthony Scaramucci notes, there are 40 prominent Trump advisors, Trump White House officials, cabinet officials who will not endorse him for a second term. The Biden-Harris campaign made this threat a couple of months ago, and it's still really eye-opening. So Trump's former Attorney General Bill Barr says that Trump's a consummate narcissist who constantly engages in reckless conduct. He'll always put his own interests in gratifying his own ego ahead of everything else, including the country. Now, Barr has since come out and said, listen, if I have to choose between him and Biden, I'm going to back Trump, for which he has been highly criticized by other Republicans who say, listen, you made the argument as well as anybody that Trump is mentally unfit for office, that he's a narcissist, that he's an idiot, that he's uncurious. And Barr has even said that Trump himself is an impediment to conservative policy, if you're truly a principled conservative, because Trump himself is not a conservative. He's just an ideologically inconsistent demagogue and grifter who just recognizes that the Republican Party is a better for enacting his cultish desires, okay? And yet, for pure partisan reasons, he's going to back Trump. But otherwise, he makes the case and has made the case throughout all of 2023. Trump is awful, not just flawed, but awful. You have John Bolton, having been in the room with him, dictators think that Trump is a laughing fool, and they're prepared to take advantage of him. Trump's former transportation secretary, Elaine Chao, says that January 6th has deeply troubled me in a way I cannot set aside. I believe in a peaceful transfer of power. I believe in democracy. She's Mitch McConnell's wife, by the way. Mark Esper, do you think that Donald Trump's a threat to democracy? Given the events of January 6th, how he undermined the election results, incited people to come to D.C. and failed to call them off, to me, that threatens our democracy. And these are quotes from these people. Alyssa Farah Griffin, Stephanie Grisham, his former press secretary, former UN ambassador Nikki Haley, who also ran against him, former chief of staff John Kelly, former defense secretary John Mattis, former national security advisor H.R. McMaster, Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, another former White House chief of staff. Mike Pence has also come out and said he won't support him. Mike Pompeo. Folks, the list goes on and on and on. And the reason I'm bringing this up, too, is because I had friends in over the weekend, some of whom were conservative, and this topic came up because, again, to me, even if, especially if you're a conservative and you want a competent conservative Republican. By the way, they are out there. They're just not in the MAGA wing of the party. And I don't even want them to be president or running the country, to be clear. But let's just say that we're having this conversation. Well, like Anthony Scaramucci says, imagine that you have 40 high-ranking members of a pharmaceutical company, 40 high-ranking middle managers, members of the C-suite, whatever, like people who are major players in a pharmaceutical company who tell the public that this particular pill will kill you. You wouldn't take the pill. If you had 40 executives or 40, high-ranking members of an automotive company, like, again, Anthony Scaramucci says, and they release a press conference saying, hey, do not buy this car, it'll kill you, you wouldn't buy the car. If you're looking to hire somebody for a job and you look at their resume, you call their last employer, you talk to their former subordinates, you talk to their peers, you talk to the people who worked with them the closest, and they all say, or at least the vast majority of them with whom you speak say, you shouldn't hire this person for the job, you wouldn't hire them for the job. More people who know Trump personally from a political perspective, people who worked in his administration close at his side, defense secretaries, chiefs of staff, communication directors, not just MAGA cultists off the street, not just voters who have never met Donald Trump, do not know anything about Donald Trump personally. The people who are in the best position to know, the Mark Espers, the H.R. McMasters, the John Kellys, the whoever, and they tell you that they don't think this man is fit to be president, that they don't think that he should occupy that office again, there is no rational good faith argument that refutes that. There's not. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is incompetent in just an objective way, in a way that no other Republican or Democrat has ever been. He is so incompetent that even people who are grading him on a curve, who bend over backwards, who serve him, who know him the best, don't think he's fit for the role. And it's just really important to point that out. I'll also point out, and play a couple of clips, that have come out recently. Scaramucci's not the only one. Those 40 Republicans that I mentioned who work for Trump in high-ranking White House roles, they're not the only ones. You have Bowers here. What's the guy's name? Rusty Bowers, the former Arizona House Speaker who played a role during the January 6th Select Committee's investigations because Trump pressured Rusty Bowers effectively to try to throw out the Arizona 2020 election results. This is what he had to say.
I have thought at times, someone born how he was and raised how he was, he has no idea what a hard life is and what people have to go through in the real world. He has no idea what courage is.
How do you explain the hold that he has, though, on Republicans, including a lot of Republican leaders right here in Arizona?
Yeah. They rule by thuggery and intimidation. So, they found a niche, they found a way, and it's fear, and people can use fear. Demagogues like to use fear as a weapon, and they weaponize everything, and we all know it.
And again, this is the former Republican Arizona speaker, who, by the way, at one point, even after January 6th, said that he would vote for Trump. And then he's since even calmed himself off of that. He has since backed away from that. So it's not even, again, as Scaramucci points out, these are not never Trumpers, folks. These are former Trumpers. And unless you are a cultist, you have to ask yourself, why were they once Trumpers who are now former Trumpers, who again have a partisan interest in getting him elected? Everything is geared and weighted towards backing Trump, and they still don't back Trump. Then perhaps there's a good reason for it, especially because, again, unlike the vast majority of Trump supporters, they knew and worked for the guy firsthand. You also have Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, a lifelong Republican. This is what he had to say.
I think Georgians are going to vote against Donald Trump, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to win the suburbs in Georgia if you're going to win an election. Brian Kemp proved that. He won the suburbs. He showed them that he was a job creator. He was an honest human being. He did the right thing when it counted the most. And Donald Trump's not done that. When these court cases play out on TV in the suburbs, specifically women in the suburbs are paying attention to these cases, there's not a single one of them that's going, oh, you know what? I've changed my mind on this Donald Trump guy. He's just a fantastic human being. He's a perfect leader for our country. It's just not happening. And so I think as we get closer and closer to November, this election is going to pull further and further away from Donald Trump, and therefore Joe Biden will end up walking away with this election.
One can only hope. But again, this is a lifelong Republican who used to be the lieutenant governor of Georgia, a red state, a guy who voted for Trump in the past, saying that not only is he not voting for Trump, he's actively voting and supporting Joe Biden, President Biden, just like Anthony Scaramucci and just like many other prominent Republicans as well. Again, the reason I bring this up is because I had recent conversations with friends on this topic, and some of them being conservative. And to me, this is kind of the Trump card, pun intended. I'm going to take everything you say at face value. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you're a friend, you're a conservative Republican. You say on principle, competence matters to you. Doesn't it matter that the people who knew Trump best, who worked for him the most directly in the previous position that he's now trying to reclaim, so it's not like they worked with Trump 40 years ago in a wildly different position. He was president from January 2017 until January 2021. 40 out of 44 of the highest ranking people when Trump was president, a position he's now trying to be again, say that they can't back him for that role. They either say he's too incompetent, he's too corrupt, he's too narcissistic, or he's just too flawed that they can't give an enthusiastic endorsement. Folks, that to me is damning. There is no good faith argument to the contrary. And I wish Republicans, Trump sympathizers, were forced to contend with it much more often. So with that in mind, let me know what you think in the comments.